Welcome back to another episode on The Wrong Idea. In case you're unfamiliar, being wrong is about embracing subjective experience over objective truth. We're not interested in being correct. We just want to explore our own insights and opinions. I'm Jack, talking with my brother Lucas, and this week we're taking our first look into our deep dives. We're taking a slightly new direction with the podcast here, and I'm going to have my brother break it down a little more what we're trying to achieve here.
All right, we're going to get into a mode where we want to go a little bit deeper into some of the concepts that we're exploring. So rather than just a cursory discussion about something at kind of a surface level, like we've been doing so far in a single episode, we want to take a multi part series approach. We want to go devote a few episodes to a particular topic and really allow us to drive into what is at the heart of that subject, why it's interesting, what we care about. In doing this, we're hoping that it feels richer and more complete, and it feels as though we have a chance to elaborate on ideas that might have come up in early episodes that we want to explore further and really get a handle on. Anything you want to add to that?
No, that was absolutely perfect. With that well broken down in mind, our first deep dive is going to be into belief systems. It is something that you and me do a lot of thinking about, as with a lot of things, but this in particular. And it rounds into a lot of aspects of our lives. And we think that this is going to be a fun way for us to explore this deep dive concept because there are so many intricacies which we can go into with this topic. So I think that the first question, which should be answered if you're going to learn about belief systems, is what are they?
That's quite a question. And I think that I want to step back for a moment and think a little bit about, you say belief systems. Yes. What are they? What are we really trying to accomplish here? And I would say that our goal is to help people figure out how to navigate effectively in the world. We want people to feel like they have the resources and the tools to act appropriately based on what their desire is and what is available to them in the world at large. So, before we can talk about what belief systems are, I want to start with a more fundamental idea, which is that of the single belief. If I ask you to define a belief, where does your head go?
My mind instantly goes to what can I fall back onto when I need to make a decision? Because a belief is something which I think you should stand firm on when you need to make a decision, which you could deem as right or wrong, or maybe you need to go off of principle on something. Your beliefs are in place so that you aren't flimsy with your decisions. Everything can be consistent and in line with how you feel and want to act.
There's a number of aspects that I like about that definition. For example, the concept that there is a point, a decision point in a point in time when we need to act or come to some conclusion. And this is when you need your belief system to kick in. And I think the other term that stuck out to me, you said you want to fall back on it. And what that implies to me is that the belief is something that you have in place already and don't need to reason about any further. It's something that you've established and that you can rely on without having to go back to first principles. Is that what you had in mind?
Yes, I mean, when I think about all of this, like you said, one of the first things I said is it should be something which you can use to make your decisions. And I think that's exactly what it should be. It's not something that you want to be constantly rethinking. You don't want to be like, "Oh, I got to rethink what I believe in all of these moments." Because after all, your emotions change and fluctuate situation to situation. And I think it's important to have something which can, ground you at a level which you always truly believe. If you're angry, I don't think you want to start going around making rash decisions. You should be able to fall back onto something which you know you really believe at heart, so you don't act in ways which are harmful to yourself, harmful to other people, harmful to whatever cause you're trying to work towards. So I think they should really be the foundation for how you present yourself to the world.
I want to follow up with, why do beliefs matter?
Well, I think I sort of touched on it there, but I think it's a way to make sure that the way you present yourself is always, the way that you want. You don't want to present yourself in a way that is different from your true beliefs. I say this because whenever you're interacting with people and they start asking you about yourself, you're going to start to be telling them about what you believe in a sense. If you believe XYZ is important, then you're going to lean on talking about those things. And they're going to say, okay, they believe these things are important. So I think that belief systems are a way to express the knowledge that you have about yourself in a way which other people can intake and use to learn about you. So you're not going around to five different people and they think whenever, maybe they end up somehow all meeting and they're talking about you and they don't have five different ideas of who you are as a person. It's consistent, it's coherent, and it's cohesive. It's something which rounds you together as a person. It brings together all of the different things which you think about and talk about and consider. It to me is a way to simplify all of the things which go on in the human mind.
Okay. So when I ask why they matter, what I'm getting out of this and what feels sort of right to me is this notion that, going back to your first point about decisions, beliefs enable us to make decisions effectively in the world. When we come up against choices that we have to make or actions we have to take and ways in which we have to interact with the world and or with other people as you're talking about as well. I think that to me gets at the heart of it. Like we want to have solid beliefs. Maybe that's where this is coming from. It's not so much about why beliefs in general matter, but why it's important to have solid beliefs, a strong belief system. And this is the key difference because I think everyone has beliefs, obviously, but how many of those people have taken the time to prune and curate their belief system to be maximally effective for their needs and their desires?
I 1000% agree. I think that's probably something that I was sort of trying to elicit out of whatever I was what was coming through my mind. But yes, solid beliefs. That was what I was sort of getting at when I was talking about, five different people you tell all things and they all have a different idea of you. I like you said, I agree. Everybody has beliefs, but there's few people who have, really thought them out and, taken the time to, reason through, maybe even think about why they believe what they believe, right? Those are things that not a lot of people will do. So having those solid beliefs, I think is very important so
I'm going to
that
stop you really quickly.
when
You said something just that's so fundamental to me here. Why we believe what we believe. I think that's a critical question, but it made me want to even say, what about like the people who even ask themselves what they believe in the first place? I feel like that's the place you have to start, and most people don't even get that far.
ooh, you make a good point here. I
So
think I mean if I'm gonna go off of first things here, one of the first things that comes to my mind is, well, what do you believe comes from what you experience. Now, again, I'm going to also fall back onto it also depends upon the people who are around you during those experiences. And eventually, I think as you're a kid, as you're someone growing up and you're going through life, you're going to see people react to things in different ways. And I think those are some of the things which start to form your earliest beliefs.
this is very true. In fact, from what we understand about human psychology in the early years, those first, 7-ish years tend to be extremely formative in terms of what we accept as truth. It's very hard before that for us to be able to even question what is or isn't true. We very much are accepting what we experience in the world as the truth, and that's absolutely shaping how our beliefs move forward. These are core beliefs, foundational beliefs. This is the stuff that everything else is built on top of. And it makes a point here, which is when I use the term solid belief system, And maybe that's a good term, maybe it's not. I think it implies some level of rigidity that I'm not looking for. In other words, it's not always static. It shouldn't be static. Your belief should be dynamic. You should be able to change and adapt them over time based on changing circumstances. But there are these, to your point, core beliefs that we have that shape so much of the way we see the world, right?
No doubt. I mean, those core beliefs need to be rock solid. I think core beliefs should be what is your sense of right and wrong. I think it's probably one of the first ones that comes to my mind. And if your sense of right and wrong is so flimsy that you could come up against a similar situation but have two completely different opinions upon it, then I think you should probably go back and start to look at that's then why do I believe what I believe? Or do I even believe anything really in the first place, or was I just acting upon the emotions that I was feeling at the first time? That's a whole other direction to go in, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's a big point. And for sure, you might find that as soon as you start to question what you believe, you may find that it's just not based on any solid foundation. And I want to be clear again, I'm not saying that these core beliefs can't also be changed. In fact, these are some of the most transformative experiences in our lives when we find that a core belief that we thought was solid, it turns out not to be useful or applicable anymore. And we will, like I said, have these experiences in the early parts of our lives that will set these beliefs, and some of them are actually or will hold us back. They won't always be. It's not like you have to get it right the first time. Like most people, in fact, I would be surprised if there was anyone who didn't have some beliefs from their childhood that were in some way holding them back, causing some sort of fear or misbelief that is making it difficult for them to see how to get what they really want.
I absolutely agree. And this begs a question that I want to ask you because you said something in there which prompted a thought in my mind. And it was this idea of rigidity in these ideas, but also the ability for them to be transformed. Because I agree they should be transformed. Now, it is my belief that you should stand very firm on your beliefs. So, my question to you is when should you start to maybe look inwards as to when your beliefs should be changed? Do you think there's anything that you can take away from maybe the way that experiences pan out, maybe the way people react to what you say? Is there anything that could point you in a direction to say, hmm, maybe I need to reconsider what I believe or why I believe what I believe? Either or.
I mean, I want to challenge you right at the level of you should be. How did you put it? You should stand firm in your beliefs. Like I don't even know that I agree with this. Like what I mean is you should stand firm in beliefs that you've spent a lot of time thinking about and developing, a lot of time testing and evaluating. Those I certainly you should have faith in and feel good about using. But I also am of the opinion that any of my beliefs at any moment could be wrong and probably is. And I think that I'm open to the possibility that I could be wrong, but I also have to understand empirically what these beliefs have allowed me to do to get where I am. So yes, it might be that you have to present a lot of evidence to change certain beliefs of mine because I've built up such an understanding over the course of my life. But I guess that's what I mean is that if you don't, you should always be introspecting and challenging your own beliefs. And it's like, okay, there are going to be some where it's just like, do I challenge beliefs that are so fundamental to me that I've literally had thousands of experiences to back up? Like I'm probably not going to revisit those often. That doesn't mean I never should. It doesn't mean that in certain circumstances, if someone brings something up that challenges that idea, that I shouldn't then take the opportunity to question it, given new evidence. But ultimately, I am looking for moments where the world challenges me to think about something differently than I might have already, or it might be that I just need to do this. I might need to spend some time. I have a decision I need to make, and I'm only seeing things through my own lens. I might try to step back, introspect, think a little bit more about what I believe and why I believe it, so that I can come and gain some new perspective. I guess it's hard to give an exact specification. This is my whole point is more that our belief systems are fluid and should be adaptable based on the context where we're applying them, and we should be only as confident in them as the amount of experience we've had allows us to be.
I love that. You said two things which I want to focus in more specifically on. The first of those two things was I'm always open to having my beliefs challenged and or changed. And I 100% agree. I think that it's the only way for one to learn and one to grow is to be open to having their beliefs changed. And when I said you should stand firm on your beliefs, I mean that as in you should not just bend and change your beliefs to go along with whatever is happening or just go against whatever is happening. Maybe there's a polarizing issue going on in the world and you're just going to pick a side because you know people that have picked A side or B side or C side, whatever. By that I mean you should make sure that you are not being flimsy or wishy-washy with your beliefs because I believe that is a poor quality to have if you don't have anything to stand firm on, or I feel like at that point you have nothing to fall back on. You have no beliefs in the first place. They are just purely judgmental. Does that seem too far-fetched?
No, I mean you're right on. I understand exactly where you're coming from. I purposely am challenging the statement because I feel like people have this notion in their heads where like if you believe something, you should believe it firmly, like you should just take a stance and roll with it. And it's like that's not quite my feeling. But you're making exactly the same point in a different way. In that those who are willing to just accept whatever they're told aren't being critical about what they believe and absolutely don't have anywhere thing solid to stand on. So if your mind can be changed that easily, certainly you haven't built up a lot of behind any of your beliefs. They're sort of ephemeral, and that's certainly not something like this is my whole point is that we want to build up belief systems intentionally. That's our key word, right? Like we want to do these things knowing that they can help us, and we want to do them in a way that will allow us to be as effective as possible. If we just sort of, even if we wanted to have a belief system, if we didn't try to prune it in just the right way, we might spend time in places where we're building up beliefs, but ones that just don't even matter to us. So there's a lot to this, but again, the key point being we should have some beliefs that allow us to operate in the world effectively, and we should strengthen those beliefs as much as we can and question those beliefs and get to a point where we have an effective framework for operating in society that allows us to move closer to our goals.
Absolutely. I want to slightly circle back. You touched on this early in what you were saying, as you should only stand so firm on your beliefs as the amount of time that you have put into forming them. And I think that's also sort of what you were saying. You want to build beliefs that are, true to yourself, ones that you have experiences to back up, and ones that you can, you know, use in many situations because you've experienced things which have led you to believe them in the first place. And I think that is important because you've also mentioned that these are tools to help you navigate the world. And I think that as you navigate the world, you should always be sharpening your beliefs. Whatever you can, whatever experiences you take in should be things which you can take to strengthen your beliefs. And the only real way, I think, to build strong beliefs is, to have them challenged, to have them changed, to have them revised, or to have them completely crumble. Because in some cases, it's what really takes to build strong beliefs is for them to just fall apart, for you to realize, wow, I've had this belief for so long and I can't stand firm upon it anymore. So I think there are two real ways you're going to build strong ones. You're either going to find mountains and mountains of evidence to build an incredibly strong belief, which is like a concrete pillar, or maybe you're going to find others which you have that will be broken down after you've had them built for a certain amount of time, and eventually they need to be rebuilt. But once you've realized that they've become rebuilt, it sort of opens this new area for you to explore, and it creates another strong belief which you can stand on.
I like a lot of what you're saying, but where I struggle is that it sounds a little bit romantic. Like I think it's a little bit more complex than that, in the sense that no matter what we do, we're always acting on our beliefs, and we're not always intentionally gathering evidence for them. Oftentimes, what's happening is we have beliefs and we operate in the world based on those beliefs. And as long as those beliefs are not shown to be ineffective, that essentially acts as evidence of their functioning. So we don't they might be being artificially strengthened as long as we're not seeing consequences that are severe. You know what I mean? Like we might get to a point where we have these beliefs that aren't very effective, but we keep operating the world and we're still relatively satisfied with however we've been doing things, and so we have no real reason to question what we're doing. But and so we end up getting a lot of quote unquote evidence for our belief in the sense that it's almost anecdotal. Like if I have this belief and it hasn't been hurting me, then there's nothing wrong with it. So there may be beliefs that are very hard to change, even though they are actually ineffective. Like you can have these beliefs, and this is where people run into problems in life, is they have these beliefs that are deep seated, and they have gathered enough evidence in their minds that these things are effective enough to allow them to function. Yet those beliefs are actually contradictory to their goals, what they really want. So there's a lot of nuance here, and I think that this is the goal for me. The reason I wanted to spend time digging into belief systems is that I feel very strongly about the importance of building up a belief system, and I think that I have a decent handle on the beliefs that I have, but I've never really tried to rigorously classify them or write them down or understand their origins. So I want to take the time here to dig into my own belief system and to have you dig into your belief system and to be able to talk through, what kinds of beliefs are we holding that allow us to be effective? Why are we holding those beliefs? What about those makes them effective? In doing this exercise, I think that listeners will have the opportunity to follow along and gain insight into how they can do this process for themselves and start to understand their own beliefs and then figure out where those beliefs might be holding them back.
Absolutely. I think the one word that I want to settle on here before we wrap this up is you should be somewhat critical of your beliefs. Critical in the sense that you should always look back on them, always look in on them, because one of the things that you had talked about is if a belief isn't hurting me, then I shouldn't change it. Well, I'm always skeptical of what I believe. I think that's something which you should always keep around is a sense of skepticism about what you act upon and what you do, what you believe, what you hear, what you see. So, I think it will be good fun because I am far younger than you and yet I have a similar belief that, I think I have a pretty solid belief system which I act upon. But again, I've never done any deep dive into it. So I share much excitement with you in being able to look into our own belief systems, break them down, and help you, the listeners, find some tools to help you either build your own or find your own look inwards or learn about them and build it out in the first place.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of room for exciting conversations and research to be done. I have been particularly interested in doing this also as I've gotten more and more interested in storytelling. And so much of that process has to do with conveying beliefs about the world through your stories. And to do that effectively, it helps to have some model of belief systems and how beliefs change and what sort of dramatics go into making that change effectively, or realizing that a belief is strong enough to move you forward and that maybe it's the world around you that needs to change. So there's a lot in here that I want to work on, and I'll leave with something that I think will help us as we go into the next phase of this adventure. So I'm going to circle all the way back around to what are beliefs. And I think now that we've had this conversation, the understanding I've come to might make more sense. But essentially, we can think of beliefs as rules or heuristics that we operate on based on the experiences that we've had in the world. So what I mean by this is that we develop these conditional kind of causal arguments, something about under these circumstances, when this pattern of context in the world, when certain facts present themselves, or certain circumstances present themselves, I will behave in this way. And we'll find, I think, that this is the core structure of beliefs, and it allows us to be very critical and intentional in the way that we analyze them, because there is some fundamental structure that we can grasp onto, which will allow us to better clarify what it is that we believe and how the beliefs compound and work together to build these bigger systems that all operate in such a complex and fascinating way, and then figure out, once we understand that structure, how we can go in and manipulate it and make it useful to us, optimize it for our purposes to help us get what we want in life.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful way to round it off. I don't think there's anything else that I would like to touch on myself. Is there anything else you wanna say before I take us home?
No, that's all.
Wonderful. If you guys enjoyed this episode, you can find more content just like this at The Wrong Idea on Instagram, TikTok, and X. And until next time, keep finding more wrong ideas.
Got a thought that challenges the norm? We want to hear it. Post your wrong idea with the hashtag wrong idea. That's RONG idea. And join the conversation. Who knows? Your perspective might just be featured in a future episode. Remember, in a world of endless perspectives, all ideas are wrong ideas. Until next time, keep thinking, keep challenging, and keep embracing the unconventional.